In broadcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Mayor of the Borough of Bracknell Forest, Councillor Jenny Penfold.
Right, welcome everybody. I need to remind you that please can people joining on remotely turn off your... Is it live, the meeting? Sorry, yeah. Please can I remind people joining remotely to turn off your camera and microphones, and when you want to speak, please raise the hand, use the raise hand function, and remember not to use the chat because it may be streamed. In the room, please just turn off your microphones until asked to speak, and then raise your hand in a normal way. I've waived the requirement to in the council procedure rules requiring councillors to stand when you're speaking. Right, now formally declare the meeting open. Right, apologies, Clark, please.
Yes, I've received apologies from Councillor Christoph Eberle, Councillor Neil, Councillor Presland, Councillor Robertson.
Thank you. Are there any people joining online?
Yes, I believe we have Councillor Eggleston. If you could confirm that you're there, thank you.
Yes, hi, good evening.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Welsh.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. And Councillor Wright.
Yes, I'm here.
I believe that is all members joining remotely.
Right. Who does the register these days? Are we taking a register? Pardon? That's you. Okay.
So now we're moving on to...
Right. Sorry. No one's reading them out. So if anyone is joining remotely, I just remind you that only people in the room can vote. So we move on to item 2, which is declarations of interest, which are set out in the agenda paper. Is there anybody needs to declare an interest? Was that a hand at the back? I haven't got my glasses on. No. Fine. Right, we move on to item 3, which is the minutes. Are there any points of inaccuracy in the minutes that people want to draw to my attention? Councillor Gilby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As an alumnus, I think I'm afforded the privilege of being pedantic. Under Mayor's charity, it should be Royal Holloway as opposed to Holloway University. Thank you.
Okay, noted. Thank you. Right. In that case, I would like to propose the minutes are adopted as a correct record. And for Councillor Temperton, would you please second those?
I will. I'll second the minutes.
Thank you. I now move on to my speech. So, oh, is everyone in favour of the minutes? Yes, that's fine. Thank you. I did intend to start by welcoming our new councillor, Councillor Donna Presland, but she's unfortunately had a prior engagement this evening. As you can see from the list on screen, which hasn't appeared, just appearing, it's been a busy period since our last meeting. Events I've attended are shown on the screen together with some photos. For some of them, my deputy has attended as my consort, as well as attending one or two on her own as well. These have been varied experiences, including events that were quite new to me, such as the start of the judicial new year. All these experiences have been very enjoyable, and it has been a privilege to attend or visit. I've also enjoyed having cabinet members and councillors accompany me to some. It was lovely to see so many of you at the Remembrance Service and also at the tree lighting in the Lexicon. These may be very different occasions, but in different ways they are equally important to our community. Some of my visits were to charities who were doing amazing work in many fields, some of which we and or the Bracknell Town Council and other parish councils are subsidising. Without their help, Bracknell Forest would be a much less human and welcoming place. The Mayor's charity held its first event last Friday. A quiz was held at Bracknell Rugby Club. It was good to see tables with town and borough councillors and from the charity The Ark. Neither of us did very well, I might add. We don't know how much we've made yet because it hasn't been counted up. Again, we have to thank the Rugby Club for their generous help and organising, helped by Andrea from The Ark. It was a little different from our usual quiz, with spot prizes rather than a raffle. But don't worry, the raffle will come at a future event. It was a very successful evening, enjoyed by all. Now, there is a lot of hard work for all of us in the run-up to Christmas. I hope then we can relax for a few days at least. I wish everybody, early as it is, I wish everybody a good break, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Now, as an additional item, I'm going to hand over to Councillor Tony Virgo so that he can update us on the Frimley Hospital.
Madam Mayor, thank you so much. I know Caroline might want to say a few words on remote, but I'll start it off if you like. We had, and thank you for the opportunity, I'm most grateful. We had a meeting last Friday with the executives at Frimley Park. And to be absolutely honest, I don't know if we learned a lot more than what we've already said to this council and to the greater public. They haven't yet decided on a site, or sites, I should say, because they've got to pick a couple. But there's a couple of things, I think Caroline would want to say one word, but a couple of things I think is quite interesting. They seem to put quite a lot of emphasis on remote working. In fact, Frimley Park have got probably the most remote working now in England of all the trusts, so we're told. And we did question some of that and the stability of remote working. So that's really important to make sure that there is backup when something happens. The other thing that I just want to mention before I hand it to Caroline is that they've also decided, I think, at least they're looking at putting some of the pressure that they have on Heatherwood Hospital. So they're looking at Heatherwood Hospital to see if they can't involve more operations there, more minor ops, and also some various things that they're doing at Frimley. Having been to Frimley quite a few times this week, Madam Mayor, it is absolutely chock-a-block. So, they're doing their best to find other alternatives, certainly before the hospital the new one is opened. And they say they will stick to that schedule, that it will be open by 2030. But Caroline, did you want to say anything? Through the Mayor, of course.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Yeah, it was a very interesting meeting. They started off by letting us know what contingency plans they had for the continuing work on the rack in the hospital. And they seem to be very much aware of what needs to be done. They're doing all the surveys. They're ensuring that the building is kept safe, but they do have excellent contingency plans involving all hospitals locally should something go wrong. As Councillor Virgo was just saying, they're very much into technology enhanced care. That is really what Frimley ICB and Frimley Hospital are going to be about in the future. So I feel as a council, we really need to look into that and ensure that we are doing what is needed for them. But overall, it was very interesting to see how they're going to put much more into the community, giving a lot of emphasis on PCNs dealing with long-term conditions rather than it ending up in emergency care. And also they very much highlighted how many people were turning up to Frimley as temporary patients and would like to encourage people to register at the local doctors, because that's another reason they're turning up to emergency departments. And following on also from Heatherwood, they're also looking at what they can do to enhance and use the estate at Wexham as well. So they have got plans if they can't do exactly what they want to do at Frimley money-wise and time-wise to enhance what they've already got. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Right, thank you. That was interesting to hear. We will leave the questions, and any questions you have on it, you could submit to to Councillor Eccleston or Councillor Virgo. Right, we now move on to item 5. And could I invite Paul Bidwell, Councillor Paul Bidwell, Cabinet Member for Economy and Regeneration, to introduce the speakers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm delighted to welcome Ian from the Bracknell BID to do a presentation on the Bracknell BID. It had a difficult start in 2020 when it first came into being, with COVID having to be something to cope with. But now, after many years, it's successfully delivering a number of projects in the western and southern investment areas, and which is really, really important to improve the working environment for those businesses. It's important also to recognise that a good working environment like the western and southern investment districts attracts businesses to the borough, something that is a key part of our economic strategy. The agreed projects that have been in train, my favourite being the shuttle bus and the bike hire, can be visibly seen. So it's something that when you walk around those sites, you can be proud to either use or acknowledge that they've been implemented by the businesses. Recently, the 2025 to 2030 bid ballot was won, and we're looking forward to that successful project implementation growing in the next 5 years. So please spread the word. A lot of people don't know a lot about the Bracknell BID, and I hope that after Ian's presentation you will know substantially more. It's a shining light and an important part of the economic strategy. So without further more ado, I'd like to welcome Ian from the Bracknell BID.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. May I also introduce the chair of the board? Actually, it's just not just me. It's a double act between Maria Saby, chair of the Bracknell BID board, and myself. So introduce Maria as well.
Thank you. Good evening.
I'd like to share a few slides, if I may.
Thank you, Ian. So good evening, Madam Mayor and everyone, and thank you for the opportunity. Bracknell BID is delighted to be here and to just overview a little bit from our current term and importantly talk about our objectives for the next term. Next slide, please, Ian. Just for those who perhaps don't know us, as Councillor Bidwell indicated, this is actually a map just to show you a snap of the BID area, which is predominantly the western business area and the southern business area, and just that small bit in between. Thank you, Ian. And this is just a snap of the BID board and the companies on the BID board. And we've got some new board directors, but we've also got some long-standing members that have been with us long before we became a formal BID. And I'll just hand over to Ian to introduce, if I may, the PFBB team, PFBB being the strategic partner to Bracknell BID.
Yeah, thanks, Maria. So we worked with the Bracknell BID prior to the first ballot to develop the BID proposal and business plan. We've been very fortunate and honoured to serve the BID businesses, levy payers on the BID board for the last 4.5 years. And we've recently supported them in preparing for the new BID proposal and business plan, as Councillor Bidwell said earlier, for the 25 to 30. So we have Sean Griffin, BID manager, and Rory Lewis, BID project support, Partnerships for Better Business has been going 20 years. We support bids across the country, both industrial estates, commercial areas and town and city centres. So we've got a wealth of experience and we're able to bring best practice to Bracknell BID, which means that they benefit from that experience, and we're also plugged into some of the business bodies for business improvement districts, such as the Association of Town and City Management, and I'm also a fellow on the Institute of Place Management.
Right, thank you. We've now got about 5 to 10 minutes of questions. If anyone has any questions. Oh, sorry, I thought you'd finished.
No, sorry, no. We've just got 1 or 2 more slides, if we may,
do show.
Councillor. Thank you.
And we will be very, very brief because we understand that time is precious. So as we're still in our existing bid term, we just wanted to touch on the fact that we've had 2.5 million of private sector investment from the bid levy to spend in accordance with our business plan. And all of our projects have literally formed either our infrastructure objective or business growth and investment. Thank you, Ian. And
a short film now, some of the stuff that we've been doing.
Just to showcase, just very, very briefly, the last 5 years, before we just briefly talk about the next 5 years, we're just going to share a short video with you.
I'm Clifton Vaughan from Natural Baby Shower, and I'm voting yes for a second term for Bracknell BID.
I'm Jo from Energy Investment Solutions Group, and we're going to be voting yes for another term with Bracknell BID.
Hi, I'm Louise. I'm the building manager at the Lightbox, and we'll be voting yes for the bid for their second term.
Hi, I'm Piers Mason-Apps from Internet Auto Centres, and we'll be voting yes for Bracknell BID's second term in October.
I'm Kevin Morrison from Midwich, and we're very excited to vote yes for a second term for Bracknell BID.
I'm Santino Linton from Printon Group, and we're voting yes for a second term for Bracknell BID this October.
I'm Nick Phillips from Cadence Design Systems. We're voting yes for a second term for the Bracknell BID this October.
Hi, I'm Scott, the manager of Electric Centre Bracknell, and we will be voting yes for the second term for Bracknell BID in October.
Hi, Steve Allen from Dynamic Media Solutions, and we'll be voting yes to the bid for their new term in October.
So the results, sorry.
Right.
So the results of that ballot were 85% by number and 87% by value, so quite a very strong result. So we've got £3.5 million worth of potential investment to spend for the next 5 years, and two key objectives. The second one, particularly carbon reduction sustainability, which is going to plug into the and support the climate change strategy for Bracknell Council, and of course business growth and investment supporting the economic strategy of Bracknell Council. Any questions?
Right. Has anyone any questions for Paul, Ian or Maria? Mary, Councillor Templeton, sorry.
I would just like to say well done, congratulations on that result, and for all that you're doing for Bracknell Forest, and particularly the influence that you're making on the climate change and your involvement in the groups that we've got working on that strategy. It's really noticeable that you're there, the bikes, the bus and other ideas, and thank you, and let's continue to work really closely together because we've got a long way to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Right. If there are no more questions, Councillor Brown.
Actually, another comment rather than a question. I've been round because I'm near the Western Industrial area, and I've really appreciated all the new planters and the sprucing up that it's got. It's fantastic. It makes it look alive again, and lovely to see the new businesses coming along as well. So thank you very much for all you do.
Thank you, and we'll pass that on to the bid board and very importantly to the team at PFBB.
Right. Are there any more questions or comments? I will add the comment that it is wonderful the work that you're doing, and Southern as well as Western is looking much more spruce than it did. Thank you.
Thank you.
If that's anything more from bid, or shall we move on to item 6, which is the petition submitted under Council Procedure Rule 9. Could I ask Jane Amber on behalf of the Acoustic Council to present her petition? Sorry, I forgot to say, you are permitted to speak for 3 minutes, and then there will be 5 minutes in total for questions from the councillor.
Thank you, Madam.
There's no opportunity to debate.
I represent the people behind 3,144 signatures who desperately need the couch to be rehoused affordably next year. Grassroots venues across the UK are a vital part of local communities. Without them, the rest of the music industry will wither. Every well-known band starts its journey at a grassroots level. These are the places where musicians develop their skills, hone their craft, and learn to engage with and develop their audience. Live music venues are the lifeblood of music culture. They offer an accessible democratic sense of community and belonging. As a resource, they nourish emotions, lift moods, and increase energy, resulting in a sense of well-being. They offer a platform to escape the constraints of everyday life. They draw together all backgrounds, cultures, and abilities to unite in a mutual love for the music. The Couch has hosted bands from Europe, the USA, South Africa, and all over the UK. They bring themselves and their fans to Bracknell. They use our car parks, eat at our local restaurants, shop in our town, and stay in our hotels. This all adds to the health of Bracknell's economy. Last year, the music industry's contribution to the UK economy was £7.6 billion. As well as original bands, the Couch hosts cover bands, tribute bands, choirs, and gospel singers. We've had comedy nights, burlesque and circus performances, dance competitions, band competitions, poetry slams, theatre performances, boxing matches, networking meetings, painting and drawing clubs, crafts and knitting circles. We've also hosted fundraisers for Macmillan, Oxfam, the Dominican Association, Cancer Research and the Adelaide Ward at the Royal Berks Hospital. We run well-attended open mics every month, and we've hosted events for the Stepping Stones Recovery College, meetings for New Hope, and we regularly have the end-of-term gigs for Rock Project. We have a recording studio and rehearsal rooms, and the Couch is a popular choice for album launches and both photo and video shoots. It has featured in magazines, on radio, and recently ITV filmed one of our band nights for a What's My Line episode. We also have college students training alongside our sound engineer, learning to mix and produce sound. Some have gone on to make a living from the opportunities we provide. We contribute greatly to the safe nighttime economy of Bracknell. We welcome all ages and pride ourselves on being a safe place for all, resulting in a high level of community cohesion. To summarise, we feel a new home for the Couch would be an investment in the cultural, social and economic future of Bracknell. Thank you.
Thank you, and very well timed too. Are there questions from Councillors of Reading?
Could you indicate where this petition came from and who started this, please?
It was started by Darren over there. Darren is one of our regular audience members, and he started the petition because he doesn't want it to close.
Thank you. Councillor Gore.
Thank you. It sounds like that everything that's great in Bracknell happens at the Couch. And so I wanted to ask you, what have you done yourselves to try and locate to new premises? And have you encountered any obstacles that you feel could be overcome?
The biggest issue, I think, obviously we're underneath the High Street car park, which needs to come down. The biggest issue is affordability. We need somewhere that we can afford. We've looked at a few places in the lexicon, and they're over 8 times a year what we're paying at the moment. And it's a place that's run by volunteers. It's non-profit. We can't afford what they're asking, unfortunately.
Thank you. Councillor Virgo, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to stand up for you because I think it's an absolutely brilliant thing, and I'm going next month actually, but that's something else. But you do exactly what you said, and you put on great venues and help people. And my goodness, that industry needs help. I know it does. But I was going to ask, have you actually thought maybe of contacting South Hill Park, and maybe there's something there that you could arrange? Is that a way forward? And we try and get the arts in one place? I don't know.
What we actually need is a building. We need to be autonomous. We need to have our own building. We have our own staff. They're all volunteers. Everybody's a volunteer. And I don't think there's a big enough building at South Hill Park, to be fair, that we could have. I don't think they'd be able to give us a building of our own.
Councillor Jeffries.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just like to speak to the council this evening. I've had the pleasure of going out and visiting the venue. I've also been out with Councillor Bidwell, and I'm just speaking in support of this initiative and the Acoustic Lounge. It is a gem in the community. It serves a lot of individuals. It serves a lot of younger generation. It gives them a place to go and express themselves. As mentioned earlier, we do get visits from all across the United Kingdom and as far afield as other countries. This does feed into our economy, and I also strongly believe Bracknell is in need of a nighttime economy. We all know.
Yeah.
All right, I'll stop there. Thank you,
Sorry.
Madam Mayor.
Councillor Watts, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to say I'm a big advocate of the couch. They're really inclusive, and the community spirit is amazing. And people who otherwise wouldn't go out at night feel safe there, and I worry where they would go otherwise. My question is, how do you choose the bands that play there?
We don't choose them, they choose us. We don't ask bands to come to us. We are approached by bands. The only time we might actually ask a band if they're free to play would be if we needed to fill in a support spot or something for somebody and we didn't have anybody.
Thank you. Recognising the huge contribution that's made and the passion with which you've advocated your question, what practical help could the council give you to help you try and find ways of securing a venue? Because it's very clear, this is a difficult area to do that. I mean, what do you believe the council could do to help you to actually preserve, maintain, and in turn enhance the acoustic capture?
I think what we actually need is help finding affordable accommodation. If we had the accommodation and we would do whatever it needed inside to make it our own, and the community would come.
Right, thank you. We've had our 5 minutes of questions. I would like to now hand over to Councillor Paul Bidwell, who will set out the next steps.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. Excuse me, Madam Mayor, if I could raise a point of order.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Under the final paragraph of Section 16 of the Scheme for Public Participation, it states that any member may move that a matter raised by a submission be referred to the Executive or the appropriate committee or subcommittee. However, it seems to be an oversight of the Constitution that there's not actually an appropriate moment in the meeting for a member to do so, as it doesn't go to debate. I was wondering if I may be permitted to move such a motion at this point in time.
And that is, this seems to be an appropriate moment.
To take advice on this one.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've had the benefit of speaking to Councillor Smith prior to the meeting, and I have agreed that there is a provision within the Constitution which allows for this. What I would suggest in the first instance is, I understand Councillor Bidwell was going to speak to the petition. If he is permitted to do that, and after that we can have the motion put forward and seconded, and then a vote can be taken. A vote has to be taken without debate, I should stress, so there's no mechanism for debate. If that falls, if the vote falls, then we revert to whatever Councillor Bidwell may be proposing himself. Thank you.
Councillor Bidwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, it seems like events have overtaken us, but what I was going to do was to ask officers to come back to us. Sorry? No, I'm having. No, you need to put your hand up if you want to speak. I was going to ask officers to come back with an update, bearing in mind the petition, but I think, as I said, events have overtaken us, and I think it's entirely appropriate, being a real supporter of the acoustic couch myself. Hope everything hasn't seen me in there behaving badly. And we'll take it from there. So I think, Madam Mayor, if we can move to a vote on whether we take it to Cabinet or not, that would be very helpful.
Right. Are you happy with that, Councillor Smith?
I'm happy with that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Can we take a vote? Sorry, who would second it? Thank you, Councillor Barnard. In that case, we'll go on to a vote if we carry on. Yeah. Right. Sorry, you know. Right. We are now on to item 7, which is the Cabinet report. Councillor Temperton, would you please present the report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Since we last met, it's been a really, really busy time. And I'm sure you're about to realise this as I report everything that's been happening. The first thing that we agreed is the Warfield Community Hub, which the slide will catch up in a minute. And the Cabinet supported the development of a new community hub in Warfield to provide key facilities and community space. The area is underserved compared to other parts of the borough, and nearby Bracknell Hall is not large enough to meet the growing needs of the local community. This is a superb building, and it's almost it's as near zero carbon as possible. So it's to be congratulated. Cabinet has also approved the procurement plan for the hub's building and design work. The hub will be jointly funded by Bracknell Forest Council and the Warfield Parish Council through developer contributions and temporary borrowing. And there's a recommendation later on. The disclosure and barring service checks for councillors, co-opted members and mayoral consorts. The Cabinet agreed to adopt the disclosure and barring service checks for councillors and co-opted members and mayoral consorts. The policy was developed in consultation with political groups following a letter to all council leaders from the Minister for Local Government earlier this year. The letter urged leaders to adapt and enhance DBS check for all councillors serving on committees with responsibility for children's services or services for vulnerable adults. I'm sure most of our residents would have thought we already had gone through this. The adoption of a parental leave policy for councillors. Several councils have adopted a parental leave policy, and the Local Government Association has produced a model policy for councillors to adopt or amend as appropriate. The Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman Annual Review Letter 2023-24. The letter provides an overview of the Council's LGSCO complaints and relevant data in 2023-24. It reviewed 33 complaints relating to the Council. 13 were investigated, of which 12 were upheld. The Council successfully implemented all recommendations made by the LGSCO, including apologies, payments and improvements. In one of the upheld cases, the LGSCO found the Council had provided a satisfactory remedy before the complaint was referred. Appropriation of land at Downshire Golf Course. For mid-2025, the Council anticipates having no further burial space at East Hampstead Park Cemetery and Crematorium. There are certain faiths for whom burial is the only option permitted. There's also individuals who specifically choose to be buried. Without burial space, these people and their families would be negatively affected. Cabinet accepted that the pitch and putt area of nearby Downshire Golf Course was the most appropriate place for the extension of the cemetery. This is the land the Council owns and is next to the existing cemetery. Cabinet approved the appropriation of the pitch and putt plan for planning purposes so it can be redeveloped as an additional space for the adjoining cemetery. It will still require planning consent. Community Safety Plan 2025-28. The Cabinet approved the Community Safety Plan 2025-28, which aims to create a safer and healthier community where everyone can feel secure. The plan takes into account local crime and disorder evidence, feedback from workshops and consultation events, comments from a 4-week resident consultation on recommended priorities and locations of crime and disorder, and Bracknell Forest resident feedback to the Police and Crime Commission's local crime survey. This is again will be recommended to the Council later. The Youth Justice Plan 24-27. Cabinet agreed the Youth Justice Plan 24-27. This reflects the borough's commitment to addressing youth crime and supporting young people at risk of carrying out a crime. The foundation of the Youth Justice Plan is child first. The plan will make sure the Youth Justice Service meets national standards and priorities and sets out how we will work with other organisations. Household Support Fund Phase 6. This will see supermarket vouchers distributed to families with children who qualify for free school meals. Households receive a £15 voucher per child per week of the holidays. An extension of the local welfare scheme for households in need of emergency help. Grants allocated to voluntary community and faith sector organisations to help them further support residents. And extra financial support for pensioners who do not receive benefits in scope for the winter fuel payment in 24 and receive an adult care non-residential service. If any fund is then spent, supermarket vouchers may be provided to residents identified in fuel poverty or groups not previously supported from the funding. Housing development sites. Cabinet agreed to support the development of new affordable homes on 2 council sites which will either be affordable or available for social rent. Cabinet supported creating 100% affordable development on the council's old depot site. This is due to include a mix of flats and 3 and 4 bedroom homes. It's also agreed to create an affordable scheme of larger family-sized homes for social rent on the site of Binfield Road. They agreed not to progress development on the site in Oplarden Way, Crown Wood, and to relocate the money earmarked for this project. This reflects the commitment to increase affordable housing in the borough as set out in the council plan. Housing Supplementary Planning Document Consultation. This was agreed to should run from the 1st of October to the 5th of November. The purpose of this SPD is to expand on planning policies that form part of the local plan by providing more detailed guidance. Approval of Biodiversity Action Plan 24-29. This is to support the plan. This is to support the summary. This is to support the plan. Forms part of the biodiversity, and it forms part of our statutory duty to consider what we can do to conserve and enhance biodiversity. Approval to adopt the Bracknell Town Centre Master Plan Supplementary Planning Document. The master plan set out the type of development that could be carried out at High Street car park site, the Southern Gateway area and the Eastern Gateway area. The sites are council owned, sustainably located and form key gateways into the town centre. Their development is another part of the town centre's continued regeneration. Consultation on draft statement of community involvement on planning matters. This was agreed and public consultation should run from the 29th of October to the 3rd of December. The document sets out how planning services will keep residents and stakeholders informed about the planning process and highlights opportunity for people to get involved. Draft local nature recovery strategy. This is a public consultation. It should proceed to 6-week public consultation as long as concerns raised by officers were adequately addressed before 23rd of November. That was the way in which it was actually presented more than anything else. Berkshire Forest falls within the Berkshire Nature Recovery Strategy Area. Each local strategy area agrees priorities for nature recovery and proposes appropriate actions. Draft Local Transport Plan 4, 2537, public consultation. This has started already in November. The plan focuses on making travel safer, healthier, more sustainable. It aims to reduce car dependency, improve public transport and support active travel like cycling and walking. The Council Plan Overview Report. The Cabinet noted the performance of the Council from April to June. This included any recommendations made by overview and scrutiny. At the end of the quarter, there were 119 actions to be reported. Of these, 4 were complete, 4 not yet started, 2 actions were no longer progressing. Of the 108 actions, 82 were green, 21 were amber, 5 were red. Town Centre off-street day rate car park charges. Cabinet noted the options on charging tariffs for the Avenue, Bracken Walk and Weatherway car parks from the 1st of October. They approved option 1 as set out in the report. They also agreed the tariff increases at Bracknell and Wokingham College. Additionally, it was agreed that in future the town centre off-street rate car parking charges would be increased in line with the maximum allowed as part of the annual fees and charges process starting in April instead of October. Quarterly update on special education needs and disability improvement. Cabinet noted the progress made on implementing the SEND written statement of action to improve services to children and families. They noted the feedback from the Department of Education and NHS England following the 5th review meeting in May. Feedback was positive and acknowledged there is a clear commitment to deliver the remaining actions. Progress made on delivering the safety valve intervention programme was also noted by the Cabinet. School attendance strategy requests for public consultation. The strategy is now out for public consultation. It will ensure the council is in line with the Department for Education's guidance for improving school attendance. It will be shaped by the views of parents, carers, schools, children and young people. Retender of property and motor insurance and claims handling services. The Cabinet approved the procurement plan for the tender of the property and maintenance services policies using the insurance placement framework on the Yorkshire Purchasing Organisation dynamic purchasing system. Budget update. Cabinet noted the Council's predicted current year financial position of a projected 2.7 million overspend, taking account of emerging issues. They endorsed the actions agreed by the corporate management team to help to contain expenditure in the current year and noted that further action is likely to be needed. The Cabinet also noted the Council's predicted medium-term financial prospects. Human resources and payroll software application and hosting. Cabinet approved the procurement plan for the human resources and payroll software and hosting arrangements. Sexual health review. The Health and Care Overview and Scrutiny Panel completed a very thorough review of sexual health services for young people in the borough. Several areas for improvement were identified. Cabinet agreed the panel's recommendations as set out in the report and endorsed the areas for improvement. East Berkshire Stroke Support Service from the 1st of April 25 to 31st of March 2030. The East Berkshire Specialist Stroke Support Service provides high-quality information, specialist advice and non-medical support to stroke survivors and their family. The Cabinet agreed the tender recommendations to the services as set out in the report, and the Bracknell Forest shall continue as lead commissioner. That finishes my report, but I have one question already been sent to me by Councillor Barnard because of there's much speculation of the imminent white paper on devolution and local government organisation, and he asked if I could give a summary of what the unitary authorities across Berkshire have been doing. And this comes up very nicely because it was in part of the report of the quarterly, the first quarterly part. We mentioned that a new board called the Prosperity Board was set up, so I'll include it in that. The 6 unitary authorities, which came when Berkshire County Council was demolished, really, it was put into the 6 unitary authorities. And we've all been working really well and positively together. And I do say that with great confidence. We are working positively together. All the Berkshire leaders are working with a shared commitment to do the very best for Berkshire. And there is no implication there that we should rejoin to form a county council. The 6 working group, the 6 unitary authorities are called the Berkshire Leaders Group, and they have working groups in there with priority themes. The priority themes are education and skills, social, accessible and affordable living, housing, health and inequalities, strategic infrastructure, net zero and sector development. For the public face of this, for public meetings and public scrutiny, the Berkshire Leaders Groups have set up something called the Prosperity Board, and there's now been 2 meetings of these. Part of that Prosperity Board, there's been a new Business Advisory Board that has been set up with a membership of 15 to 20 people. 5 of those seats were reserved for Berkshire LEP, Thames Valley Chamber of Commerce, University of Reading, Further Education Colleges and the Federation of Small Businesses. Industries across Berkshire have been invited to join and become part of the rest of that membership, making up the other 15 people. This includes people from sciences, creative and screen industries, IT, digital, visiting and economy, retail and hospitality, developers and construction. The purpose of this Business Advisory Board is to drive economic growth across Berkshire. Ministers in Parliament have known about this. They know where we stand. We are ready to go. We're just waiting now for the white paper with bated breath to find out what the detail is. Thank you.
Thank you. More questions? Councillor Barnard.
Yeah, thank you very much. Madam Mayor, am I able to ask a supplementary to my question? Then I've got one about the safety valve, if that's okay.
Sorry, yes, I was trying to say.
Thank you very much, Councillor Templeton, for your answer. My supplementary question is twofold. So buried in that was, I got the sense that actually leaders working together, you value the, the independence of the unitary authorities. And if I'm right, and the trailer to a white paper, and I think we should always be cautious about this, there's a suggestion that devolution will only be move forward in an area where there's cooperation. My first question is it the sense that you wish to retain, that position? But we also know there's a lot of talk about mayors and things like this, regional mayors. Is that something that is being discussed as well? Because I sense with the white paper there won't be much, much time before actually, decisions will be made or forced on us. Thank you.
Right. The 6 unitary authorities, we think we can do it as Berkshire with the 6 unitary authorities. So we think if there's going to be the reorganisation, that's our first push. There is obviously speaking of the size of this, and we have to realise that we're 0.9 million and it might not be big enough. So there are some talks, but nothing definite, because nobody wants to commit to anything or get involved with anything until we know the detail, because nobody has any time for wasted meetings and a lot of wasted hot air. So we're waiting for the detail to find out what we're going to do. But everybody's aware of what the likelihood is, and there is a move to unitary authorities, because I think Surrey have agreed to go to unitary authorities yesterday. So I think counties are dividing up, or districts are going into unitaries.
Thank you. Councillor Barnard again.
Thank you. So my second question relates to the quarterly update on SEND and in particular the safety valve. I was surprised tonight that no mention was made of very directly of efforts to tackle the fact that we are the highest spend in the high needs block, because I was surprised, having had a briefing of this, to discover this by a report in the Bracknell News about the agenda for the schools forum, and I just want your your reassurance that we're actually really looking at this hard, because this could derail the whole of the safety valve programme. So where we are on that.
I think you've got I'll ask the cabinet member will you speak that, or if you've got later on in the agenda there is a whole update on SEND. Does that include the safety valve? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Roy Bailey. I sit on the regular safety valve updates organised by the corporate management team and other key people, and I'm confident, as far as I can be, that everything we're on track, and that, I beg your pardon, sorry, is that better? I'm confident that we're on track. It was a significant thing for us to do, but I think it's the right thing to do, and that within 2 to 3 years we'll have the additional specialist resource provision that we need. That will be in place. I'm confident of that. It's not without pain, but I'm confident we're on track, and I'm sure we're going to get there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barnard again.
Yeah, just on that, Councillor Bailey, we have, the appropriate specialist need, but can you confirm that actually the capacity will be ramping up on that? So it's fair to say that in the case of Bucklers Park, for example, it will start opening in 2027. It won't be at full capacity by then.
I'm confident that we'll have all the spaces that we're going to need. Obviously, ADHD and autism, there are ranges of it. Everyone will need to go to a specialist school. Clearly they won't. The emphasis is on maintaining provision within mainstream schools. With the additional units being provided, I'm confident that we'll have sufficient spaces, but the emphasis will be very much on early intervention to address these needs much earlier on, so the need for EHCPs will be obviated.
Right, thank you. Councillor Allen.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Allen. So you mentioned the Warfield Community Hub that was being funded on our side by the Community Infrastructure Levy in Section 106 and some temporary borrowing. Can I ask what is the value of the temporary borrowing and how long is temporary?
Can I ask, it's a technical question. Have we got the technical answer here, or can I ask it to be written?
Councillor Jeffries, it is a technical question. I do have it in depth, and I will be happy to respond to you in writing.
Thank you for that. And the second one was about the town centre car parking charges. So there's been an increase from the 1st of October, and now there's going to be one in April. So are you telling our residents we're likely to get 2 increases in 6 months?
No. Okay, that has been misunderstood. Okay, the decision has been taken now because the decision has traditionally been taken in October. But from now on, the decision will be taken. It won't be raised again, but a decision will all be part of that budget discussion as a normal budget discussion and not taken in October.
So the decision will be made in April and implemented in October? Is that what you're saying?
It's taken last October and implemented last October, I think, as far as I'm aware.
But you said the fees and charges will be changing, but will be decided in April from going forwards. So I'm just trying to determine when we will be changing the car parking changes next. Will it be in April or October?
So, well, my understanding it was in October. Right. Thank you. But I will get that checked. Are there any other questions? Councillor Harrison.
Perhaps, Leader, you could give us a view as to how raising the car parking charges at the maximum rate allowable supports the objectives of continuing the renewal of the town centre.
The budget is very, very tight, as you are well aware.
And raising the interest on the car parking side is actually one way in which we can get some revenue coming, some income coming in. I also would prefer, as standing here as Mrs. Green, for as many people as possible to use the buses. But it will not. I'm sure it won't prevent people from coming in, and they will be coming in their cars. But that is one. It really is a good way of us making sure that the people who come, we are getting money from those car parks.
Could I just have a clarification? Did I just hear you say that you are raising the charges on car parking, and you'd like people to stop bringing their cars to Bracknell Town Centre?
No, but I said I would love people to use the buses, and that's why at Christmas time we've got 3 buses going on. The more people that come into Bracknell, the better. Yeah, people that come into Bracknell and use the car parks will help us make sure that we don't get overspent in this budget.
Are there any more questions?
No, Madam Mayor, I just need to declare an interest. I will not be able to participate in the resolution in regard to the Warfield Community Hub because I am a parish councillor, so I don't know whether I need to leave the meeting at that point or not.
It's all right for you to just listen, and that is that all right?
Apologies. Can I just confirm what the nature of the interest is?
Well, I'm Chairman of Warfield Parish Council, and any recommendation will go from the Parish Council, and I currently sit on the Design and Build Committee, so I'm pretty intimately associated with this project and have been for the best part of 10 years.
Yeah. In the circumstance, I think it would be sensible for you to withdraw for that item.
Thank you. That will give me a couple of break.
So may I ask my status with regard to that, as I was the executive member that certainly took a lot of this forward, and also I've been involved in the in some of the planning around this, not planning committee, but the planning of the site. Do I need to withdraw, or shall I just declare an interest?
Thank you. I would suggest the same applies, Councillor Harrison. Yep. Thank you.
Right. Well, we now come on to the 5 recommendations. Sorry, 3 recommendations. It's 5 questions later. Sorry? Yeah. Right, the first item is about the Warfield Community Centre, so if people have got to leave... The first recommendation is related to the Warfield Community Hub. If you have councillors any questions? Sorry. In that case, someone needs to move the motion. Councillor Jeffries, could you move the motion? Recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to move the recommendation.
Do we have a seconder?
Councillor Watts, I'm happy to second.
Thank you. Mover, Councillor Jeffries, would you like to speak to the recommendation?
Very briefly, Madam Mayor. I'm asking the Council to approve an in-year supplementary capital approval of 13.7 million to enable the project to be progressed as part of the capital programme, noting that the project costs will be joint funded 50-50 by Bracknell Forest Council and Warfield Parish Council. The project will be funded through Section 106 and SIL contributions, with some temporary borrowing breakdown to be provided. But risks such as legal covenants, inflation and funding gaps will be managed. Legal consultations have addressed issues around restrictive covenants, land transfer and subsidy control. The community hub, set for completion by 2027, the project will adhere to high sustainability standards, including BREEAM Excellent rating, operational net zero, and a 10% biodiversity net gain. The hub will also ensure accessibility and inclusivity, with a strong emphasis on health, well-being and environmental sustainability. The community hub will provide a sustainable and inclusive community centre in an area with a growing population that has been underserved in the past by community centre facilities. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Would the seconder like to speak to the motion, to the recommendation?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor. Sorry, losing my voice. I saw a wonderful presentation on this. It's a great investment in the future, and the net zero operating model is exactly what we're looking for, and it will serve the community for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor College.
Thank you. Just very briefly, this community hub will be in our ward. As everybody has been saying, it is very much needed, and the community in Warfield at the moment has been underserved for many years by the size of both the Brownlow Hall and Whitegrove Community Centre. We've been following the project since we joined the council last year, and we're really looking forward to seeing it built. Thank you.
Any other councillor like to speak? Would the mover like to sum up?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Right. Sorry. The recommendation is set out on screen. Could you raise your hand if you are in favour? Against? No, it is I think that was unanimous. Right, thank you. Right, that is carried. Yeah. Sure, you'll be pleased to know it was carried. Is Councillor? We will wait to debate on this until he returns. Okay. Okay. The second recommendation is on page 19 of your agenda, and it relates to the Community Safety Plan 2024-28. Do any councillors have a question for the Cabinet Member, Councillor Purnell? No, there don't appear to be any questions. Councillor Purnell, would you like to move the recommendation?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move this recommendation.
And do we have a seconder?
I would like to second those, please.
Councillor Temperton. Right. Councillor Purnell, would you like to speak to the motion, to the recommendation?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm asking the Council to approve the Criminal Safety Plan. As the Cabinet Member responsible, I emphasise the alignment of the proposed plan with the borough's priorities of engaged and healthy communities and having a safe and affordable place to live. The plan, which is a statutory requirement, is based on a comprehensive review of local crime and disorder data, partner feedback and resident consultation, which will be reviewed annually. Progress against the aims outlined in the plan will be reported quarterly to the Criminal Safety Partnership Performance Meeting, as well as to the annual Public Overview and Scrutiny Crime Disorder Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Temperton, would you like to second or reserve?
I'll second and I'll speak. The main priorities, and not in any order of speciality, are that they will be focusing on crime and antisocial behaviour hotspots, including drug dealing and public drug use and e-scooters, town centre and antisocial behaviour, domestic abuse, serious violence, hate crime and disorder. This was agreed by nearly everyone who took part in this consultation. Thank you.
Thank you. Would any councillor like to speak? No? If no councillor wishes to speak, would you like to sum up?
Nothing further
Sorry,
to add.
I forgot to check. Deputy, is anyone online wanting to speak?
No one online, Madam Mayor, wishes to speak.
Thank you. Councillor Purnell, would you like to sum up?
Nothing further to add, thank you.
We will go straight to the vote. All those in favour, raise your hands. Right, I think that's unanimous again, so that is carried. Right. The third recommendation on page 20 of the agenda relates to Community Youth Justice Plan 2024-27. Do any questions, any councillors have questions for Councillor Purnell, the Cabinet member? No, if there are no questions, would you like to move the motion, Councillor Purnell?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Recommendation. Do we have a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Watts. Councillor Purnell, would you like to speak to the motion, to the recommendation, sorry?
Thank you. So I'm asking the Council to approve the Youth Justice Plan 24-27. As a Cabinet member responsible, I emphasise the alignment of the proposed plan with the borough's priorities. Residents have a safe and affordable place to live. Children have quality education and opportunities to fulfil their potential. Every child is safe as they grow up and where support puts family first. The plan, another statutory requirement, is based largely on findings of His Majesty's Inspectorate of Probation inspection, local data, self-assessments and new initiatives identified by the Youth Justice Team and the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner. Progress against the action plan will be reported bi-monthly to the Bracknell Forest Youth Justice Management Board, which includes representation from the South East region of the Youth Justice Board, as well as to the Community Safety Partnership Performance Group and the Annual Public and Overview Scrutiny, Crime and Disorder Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Watts, would you like to speak to the recommendation?
Yes, thank you. I just want to say this is a really good strategy and it has all the right ideas. And we need this strategy if young people are going to have any control over their future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any councillor in the room who would like to speak? Madam Deputy, are there any councillors online who would like to speak?
No councillors online, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Purnell, would you like to sum up?
Nothing further to add, thank you.
In that case, we'll go straight to the vote. Would you raise your hands if you are in favour of this recommendation? That is unanimous, so it is carried. Thank you. We now move on to the SEND update. So if I could pass over to you, Councillor Bailey, who's Cabinet Member for Children and Young People.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Roy Bailey. I'm very grateful to the officers for preparing this important SEND update. Before I begin, I'd like to say that this council acknowledges that for some parents and carers, we do not always get it right, despite our very best endeavours. It is vitally important for us to reach out to ensure we capture every single voice so that those families struggling with SEN-related issues feel they are being heard and not ignored. This continues to be important work in progress. To this end, I meet regularly with all the key senior council officers, together with having ongoing conversations with the chair of the Parent Carers Forum. I attend meetings of the Schools Forum and meet with local head teachers to ensure that I'm as fully informed as I can be. SEN remains a key priority for our council, despite the many and complex challenges, including the urgent need for more funding. We are beginning to make inroads. However, I need to make it very clear that neither I nor the council are in any way complacent about the difficulties involved. We will face them head on. On a national level, the National Audit Office has confirmed in its recent report what many parents already know too well. The SEN system inherited from the last Conservative government is broken. The government recognises there is a crisis in the system. The budget announced £1 billion of funding for high-need SEN provision, bringing the total high-need investment to £11.9 billion. How this will impact the specific budgets for councils is yet to be announced. Ministers recognise the EHCP system can seem too adversarial and are consulting with the National Young People's Group, which is a diverse group of young people with SEND, to hear their experiences in education while reviewing how the SEND system works. Our MP, Peter Swallow, has given 2 speeches in the House of Commons on this topic and has raised questions around the SEND system directly with ministers. I know he's continued to engage publicly and privately with the government to discuss high-need SEND provision in Bracknell Forest. I know he's actively engaging with parents and charities in the local area to support those in the system. I now move on to the verbal update. It'll be in headings. The first is Autism Transition Team. This team has been established to provide support for children and young people who have needs in the area of communication and interaction and autism. The team works with children and families in Year 6 to transition to Year 7. 97 pupils supported by the Autism Transition Team since July 2024. 2% of the cohort required different type of placement. The Autism Transition Team are a new team, and this data will be used to benchmark. There has been some feedback already from parent carers. One I'll read out to you now. My daughter has been part of a scheme started this year called the Transition Support Team with Bracknell Forest Council. She has a support worker who started with her a few months before end of primary Year 6, and she stays with her until Christmas, so during the first term of secondary. It's been amazing, and given her the support she needed, and her support worker has been our advocate at the new secondary to help put measures in place, and this has really helped. It still requires the fight, though, and constant communication with the school, but it's definitely helped. I hope it continues and grows to allow more SEN children to have this support, and I know we are very lucky to have received it. The SEN Statutory Service. The past 4 years has seen significant growth in the total number of education and healthcare plans, which equates to approximately 65.6% increase. The SEN service is being proactive in ceasing educational healthcare plans where they are no longer necessary. To this date, there have been 53 EHC plans ceased, compared with 71 in the previous 12 months reporting period. There have been a further 60 EHC plans identified for ceasing, and the process has started. The SEN service is now fully recruited. Onboarding of permanent staff is complete. The SEN service has 1 agency staff in place whose contract will cease on the 31st of December. The statutory SEN team has restructured to provide a more focused approach to specific age ranges within a child, young person's education journey. This is aimed to provide consistency of SEND officers to families and schools, smooth transitions at key stages, and more robust support to our education providers. Though only a term into the restructure, this is proving very positive change for all, with positive feedback received from school leaders. SEND data. No data queries this week, that's for week ending 14th of November, all recording on 1 matches with the tracker, which means that case management system aligns with the central data collection. For requests received since the 1st of August 2024 and a decision on whether to assess has been made, 90% of these decisions were made within the 6-week timescale. For requests received after the 1st of April 2024, 52 of these have so far led to plans being issued, and 84.6% of them were issued within the 20-week timescale. The rate of progress for issuing plans continues to be on track for a zero backlog at the year end, issued within 20 weeks. New systems have been put in place for the monitoring and tracking of annual reviews. More annual reviews have been completed in the last 3 months than any 3 months period previously recorded. Access to education, called A2E, Bracknell Forest Council provision to provide children and young people with education when they are medically unfit for school. A2E have transitioned double the number of children back into school than the same period last year. For academic year 24-25 versus, 4 in academic year 24-25 versus 2 in academic year 23-24. To ensure continuation of learning for children and young people with medical needs, their education now taking place by the school setting where able. This is being undertaken by the use of digital technology, under what they're called AVI robots, and the feedback for those has been very encouraging. Permanent exclusions. We're now using Cranberry College for our people who've been permanently excluded, currently supporting 2 young people, and for the period 1st of September to 25th of November. I'm struggling to understand this. I think we're seeing a drop overall. That's the point, I think, of this particular report. But we do have provision at Cranberry College. Suspensions. The total suspensions, or number of days, is 500 across the borough in the reporting period 1st of September 24 to the 25th of November 24. And that 645 compared with in 1st of September 23 to 25th of November 23. A decrease of 22.5%. And that's across both primary and secondary. The number of students dropped from 1st of September 24 to 25th of November 24, 235 compared with 312, which is a decrease of 24.7%. I'm coming to the end, you'll be glad to know. Resource provisions in special schools. Second, secondment of a head teacher to work on the admissions criteria for specialist resource provisions, which we call SRPs, service level agreements and funding levels. Additional level of funding has been agreed for the SRPs and is in place. Sandhurst, the unit at Sandhurst opened in 2024 for the first cohort of 5 children. Edgeborough is opening in 2025 for the first cohort of 5 children. A trust has been identified to run the new SEMH school, going through DFE sign-off, and the announcement is planned for December 2024. Send Finance. The Send Finance team has been fully recruited to, and significant work has been undertaken with the school's funding to ensure prompt payments and queries are resolved in a timely way. There's been positive feedback from school leaders. Banding tool. A new banding tool has been agreed with implementation scheduled for the 1st of January 2025. The last section is communication. Currently working with the Parent Carers Forum to increase the volume and type of communication to parents via that forum, and to revisit the basics again. In other words, to enable parents to understand what does an SEN officer do, and refocus on what promoting is included in additional needs information. So basically making sure the two-way exchange of information is made clearer and parents feel more able to participate in it. And that concludes my update, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Before we have 5 minutes for questions, but can I remind you not to repeat questions that you already have asked resend this evening. There's no opportunity to debate this. Right. Sorry, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thank the Cabinet Member for his candid update on the Council's progress on SEND issues. As he will be aware, an open letter signed by nearly 150 parents recently raised a variety of concerns surrounding the council's SEND provision. Whilst officers have been keen to highlight positive progress against the various indicators set out in the SEND written statement of action, this letter suggests that this progress is not always translating into a positive experience for parents. Can the Cabinet member elaborate on what actions specifically are being taken to address the concerns raised within this letter?
Yes, I thank the member for that question. That letter was taken very seriously. I had a number of discussions with senior council officers about it, and my whole focus throughout was to make sure that we weren't missing anything. Were there any patterns in what people were saying? I'm also looking at the current survey that's gone out from the Parent Carers Forum to see whether there are identical patterns there. We all want to do what is right to ensure that families affected by SEND get the right attention in a timely fashion. We're doing our best to do that, but I'd like to assure him and the other council members that we want to capture every bit of evidence there is and to make sure we've understood it and we're able to respond to it in a progressive way.
Thank you. Councillor Barnard.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. It is now exactly 3 years, give or take a few days, since the SEND inspection. And that, for me, when I heard that inspection result, was one of the lowest points I had as a councillor here. I hear lots of work in progress. Can you please give me an idea why 3 years into this progress, you're still talking about only completing teams? I mean, there is some progress in there. And secondly, in relation to the question that Councillor Smith asked, I was really disappointed when I've heard and seen responses to that group of parents, who, of course, as you know, was actually encouraged to do so by the head teacher of a local Bracknell Forest school, Grant Strudley, on social media, so it was in the public domain. I'm really disappointed that we sought to minimise their impact. Do you not agree that we should actually be well much further down the journey of improvement in SEND, given it's 3 years since the inspection? And furthermore, there might be a lot spoken at national level, but what I think parents are asking for is that you take key political responsibility for delivering what we can with what we've got until any future funding comes forward, because we're not yet there yet with our parents.
Thank the member for that question. Let me repeat once again, I'm only too painfully aware of the distress and frustration felt by some of the parents you've just referred to. There's a whole range of complexities in all of this, but what they all expect is a timely response, an empathetic response, and a response that sets reasonable expectations. And I have daily discussions with council officers about this. We talk about almost nothing else. I share his frustration, but I wish it were more simple, but it isn't. The system, as I said before, is broken. It's broken across the country. It's not just here. But whatever we can do locally to take away some of those other things, those other issues that aren't necessarily affected by finance, we are taking great strides to make sure we deal with them. Importantly, to make sure parents see that we're listening to them and that we're doing the very best that we can. And we do get it wrong from time to time. And I meet regularly with the new head of the SEND team, and we have very frank discussions about all of this. I know the staff there are working their hardest to deal with this. I'm confident that the response letters we're now sending out have got the right balance. They're timely, they're empathetic, they're understanding, but also we deal with them in the way that we say we're going to deal with them. That will help some of this, but I'm not complacent. I know there are lots of parents who remain frustrated, and I won't ignore them.
Right, thank you. Councillor Watts.
If I might speak on this a minute? Is that okay? Oh, no, I'm
Question.
My question to Councillor Bailey is the idea of the what is a SEN officer is a very good idea. I think parents are tired and obviously struggling, and navigating the SEN department can be very tricky, and I'm constantly urging people to talk to their local councillors because there's a lot of disinformation, as you say. So when is this what is the SEN officer happening, and can I share it, please? Thank you.
Sorry, I missed that last part. Could you repeat it? I'm sorry.
In your report, you're saying that you're doing a what does their SEN officer do? I was wondering when that is, and is there a post or anything I can share around?
I will get that to you as soon as I can, but it's certainly something we want to do urgently.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. Are there any more questions? In that case, we will move on to item 9, which is the annual standards report. Councillors, do you have any questions for Councillor O'Regan, who is the chair of the Governance and Audit Committee?
Yeah, so just a bit of context for members and also members of the public listening. And so this is an annual report that's presented to the Governance and Ordinance Committee. So it's been discussed at that committee. It was presented by the Borough Solicitor, and it's just our duty to read it and to note it.
Right, thank you. Are there any questions from anybody online?
Nobody online, Madam Mayor.
Right. Right. This recommendation is for the council to note the report, so we can consider that noted. Thank you. Right. Item 10, budget procedure rules. Councillors, do you have any questions of the Chair of Governance and Audit Committee, Councillor O'Regan?
Again, just to help members and members of the public listening in, again, it's come from same committee, Governance and Audit. This time we need to take a vote on some updates to the council budget meeting procedure rules. I think everybody in the room realises that the budget has to be set. There's a deadline. It has to be balanced, etc. And again, the Borough Solicitor has put forward a report that was vigorously discussed at a recent committee meeting to help improve and streamline that process. I think the committee noted that the senior management team finance manager Stuart McKellar showed that he had a very open mind in terms of suggestions from members in terms of how to raise revenue or reduce costs. And obviously there will be input into this new streamlined budget meeting procedures.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, are there any people joining remotely with questions?
No questions online, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So, would the Chair of the Governance and Ordinance Committee an Audit Committee, please move the motion?
Yes, yes, Madam Mayor. So, the recommendations on page 39, and it reads as follows. The Council is requested to approve the attached procedural rules. Background to the recommendation is the annual council budget setting meeting process is governed by the council procedure rules. In its case, that a bespoke set of rules is required to ensure that the process continues to run efficiently in future.
Thank you. Could someone second that?
Councillor Karim, second.
Thank you. Councillor Karim, do you wish to speak?
No, I don't wish to speak. Thank you.
I thought he had. Sorry. Right. Do you want to sum up and speak? Does anyone else want to speak? Right. Councillor Karim, do you wish to speak? No. I've done that bit.
Second, no.
Okay. So So would Councillor O'Regan like to sum up?
Madam Mayor, nothing further to add, just that, again, impressed with the amount of work that's been done by senior management team, and hopefully all will go well for this coming budget round.
Thank you. Right, the recommendation is set out on the screen. Would you raise hands if you are in favour? Right, that is unanimous, so that is carried. Right, we now move on to item 11, which is the schedule of meetings for 2025 to 6. Does anyone in the room have any questions for Councillor Jeffries? No. So, Deputy Mayor, are there any questions?
No one online, Deputy.
Thank you. So, Councillor Jeffries, would you please move that motion, that recommendation, sorry?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation.
Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Gilby, thank you. So, Councillor Jeffries, would you like to speak?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor. We understand the complexities in producing a calendar of this nature, and I agree that we cannot please everyone. However, the proposed timetable has been carefully planned with several considerations to minimise disruptions. Meetings are scheduled to avoid school holidays whenever possible. A minimum of 8 days is left between executive and council meetings to allow for timely publication of reports. Friday evening meetings at 7:30 p.m. are avoided. Committee meetings will generally be held on the same day of the week throughout the year. Planning committee meetings will be spaced no more than 5 weeks apart. Once the schedule is agreed upon, it is hoped that any changes that occur under exceptional circumstances and as alterations can cause issues for attendees. With many members serving on both council and local parish or town councils, it's important to finalise dates in advance to allow those councillors to plan and councillors to plan accordingly and avoid scheduling conflicts. Therefore, in-year changes should be avoided unless absolutely necessary.
Before.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Right. Councillor Kareem, were you second? Councillor Gilby, would you like to speak?
Madam Mayor, I reserve.
Thank you. Would any councillor in the room like to speak? Councillor Harrison.
Madam Mayor, and I think I owe you this because I'm not going to vote against this without explanation. So I've raised this point before. We talk a lot about inclusion and diversity. Bracknell Forest is a commuter area. There are many, many people in our community that travel to London for work, and it's actually pretty much impossible for anybody to do a normal day's work when they're working in London and get back in time for a 6:30 meeting. So we have some of our committee meetings at quite a significantly earlier time than that, and I don't think it's fair to anybody who might wish to stand for election in future. I've been in this situation in the past working in London. I don't at the moment, so it doesn't really affect me that much, but it is really not good for diversity, and it's not good for inclusion of the whole of our community.
Thank you. Councillor Barnard.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to just follow on from that, because going back to 1997, when we were transitioning to unitary authority, there was cross-party agreement that included a significant number of Labour councillors at the time that fully understood this point, and that evening meetings, except for the executive, when that would start at 5 o'clock, because that was understood, evening meetings would start at 7:30 to enable that to take place. And there's been significant mission creep over the time to bring that start time forward. And not everybody is a full-time councillor. Not everybody in this room, as has been said, can make it back at that. And I really feel that it's time we reasserted the principles that ensured that younger people in jobs who actually work in London, who work out of the borough, who live here, but also who contribute to the community in different ways, have an opportunity to be elected. And I know 6 people now who have said that because of the meeting timetable, it would be difficult for them to fulfil their responsibility. This matter has been raised, but clearly and unfortunately no real consideration has been given to this. So I would ask that tonight, happy to agree the meeting timetable, but I would like to see a significant undertaking to actually understand why those meetings can't stand at a time that enables people, and maybe we look at the timing, not the dates. I'd be comfortable with that.
Right.
The dates, not the timing.
Okay. Can Councillor Jeffries reply to that? Or is that? No, sorry, we're not in debate. Councillor Templeton.
I would just like to say that diversity also works for those that work at, they start work at 5 o'clock in the morning, and therefore evening meetings starting at 7:30, for some it has made it almost very difficult for them to actually become councillors as well, when you start very early in the morning and so late meetings in the evening don't work. So there is a reason why we have to be as diverse as possible and and change times to make most members in that council and that committee able to attend.
Right. Councillor Brown.
Thank you. There's also a consideration for some officers who finish their day's work at 5 o'clock and don't want to wait till 7:30 to be an officer at a meeting. So I think that needs to be thought about too. There's a lot to think about.
Right. Anybody else wish to speak? Right, Councillor Gilby, would you like to speak now?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Harrison's point is a fair one. We have to be considerate, but we have to be considerate of everyone. And I entirely second what Councillor Templeton has said, that whilst a later start may work for some, a later end also works against other groups as well. And I cannot promise that there's an easy way of putting something through this thread, but I want to be clear that there isn't just one group to consider here. There's an awful lot of people that have to be weighed up in this decision-making process, and I think the dates and times that have been proposed is the best balance that can be achieved for everyone.
Thank you. Councillor Jeffries, would you like to sum up?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
In that case, the recommendation is on the screen, and I will ask you to raise your hands if you support this recommendation. Right. Are there any abstentions? Against? Right. In that case, it is carried 28-2. Thank you.
Sorry, this is an abstention.
Oh, sorry. It was an sorry, I meant to say against. Right. We're now on to item 12, which is proportionality and membership report. Do councillors have any questions on that? No, if there are no questions, can I ask... Pardon? Oh, sorry, are there any online?
No questions online, Madam Mayor.
Right. Now, can I ask the Cabinet Member to move the recommendations?
I move the recommendations, thank you.
And the seconder?
Councillor Watts, happy to second.
Thank you. Does the mover wish to speak?
I'd just like to say this is a change of membership, which is pretty obvious why, and it's all the positions are filled up and named there, and yeah, just as it is on the paper.
Right, thank you. Councillor Watts, do you need to speak?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Does any councillor in the room want to speak? Wish to speak? Councillor O'Regan.
I just wanted to say that it's a really great news that we've got Diane Anderson joining our Governance and Audit Committee. I understand that independent member position has been vacant for a while, and we met Diane, and we very much welcome her to the committee, and we're looking forward to her contribution. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more councillors wish to speak? So, Councillor Demperton, would you like to sum up?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Right. The recommendation is set out on the screen. Please can you raise your hands if you are in favour? Yeah. Right. That was unanimous, so that is carried. Now, before we go on, 13 and 14, is there anybody who needs a break at this point? Sorry? Right. In that case, we will have 10 minutes. So we will be back here at 21:26. Thank you. Right. We now move on to item 13, questions submitted under the Council Procedure Rule 10. Right. 5 questions have been received from councillors, which are all set out in your agenda. Each question will be displayed on the screen in turn. The response from the relevant Cabinet member to each question has been published as a supplementary to the agenda. Both questions and the responses will be taken as read. The councillor who asks the question has the opportunity to ask one supplementary question arising from the published response. If the councillor is not present, if the executive or cabinet member is not present, who the question is to, they will send you a written answer. Right, the first question is Councillor McLean to Councillor Temperton, Cabinet Member for Climate Strategy and Change. Council Strategy and Climate Change. It is on the, yes, it's on the screen, so.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm permitted a supplementary question. So I'm very grateful to the leader's response, which of course didn't answer the question, but perhaps we shouldn't be surprised about that because no senior Labour politician seems to be able to tell anybody what the definition of a working person is. And the reason I ask this question is because the residents I represent want to know the answer to that question. And I think it's incumbent upon the leader of the council who campaigned to elect this Labour government to answer the question. So perhaps she could enlighten us this evening to tell us what message that she would like to send to residents such as our own senior officers, doctors, secondary school head teachers, why her government doesn't consider them to be working people.
Can I answer that? I think that question would be really good why they don't write to the government itself and ask them, because then they'd have a direct response and not my response. They would have a direct response from the government.
Thank you. I think move on to the next question now. The second question is from Councillor Sophie Forster to Councillor Wright, Cabinet Member for Adult Services, Health and Housing. Councillor Wright is online. Do you have a supplementary question?
I do, thank you. I thank the Cabinet Member for her response and the detailed explanation regarding the pharmaceutical needs assessment. However, it is unclear from the response what work the Council specifically is doing to support the needs of our residents on this matter. Whilst the P&A appears to indicate sufficient provision, the message we are receiving as councillors from residents on the ground is that access to pharmaceutical provision is increasingly difficult. Does the Cabinet Member acknowledge this gap between the P&A and the first-hand experience of residents? And can the Cabinet Member commit to formally lobbying for increased provision for our residents when the revised P&A is carried out beginning next month? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wright, would you like to respond?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Forster, for your question. I agree. So we have our pharmaceuticals needs assessment is done every 3 years, and then in the time between our most recent P&A and the new one that's due, there's been changes from central government with regards to opening hours, which I think is what has caused part of this problem. We will definitely lobby for more accessibility, and we will also make sure that when we do the next pharmaceutical needs assessment that we have even coverage with regards not only to geographical coverage but to opening hours across the whole of the borough. And we're also working with pharmacists currently to make sure that there is an even accessibility for everyone in the borough. But if there are any specific pharmacies which you have had reports about, please let me know, and then I can follow up directly with my connection in the ICB. Thank you.
Right, thank you. We now move on to the third question, which is from Councillor Barnard to Councillor Bailey, Cabinet Member for Children and Young People. The question and the responses will be on screen. Yes. Sorry. Would you like to now answer your... Sorry, ask your supplementary question.
Yes,
thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Can I thank Councillor Bailey not just for the written answer to this question, but the report earlier on that he gave us, and also the point earlier. However, it's a full answer to part of my question, and I'm really concerned that there was no reference in the end to the real meat of this from members' perspective, which was to ask the Overhearing Scrutiny Commission to carry out a review of the Council Special Educational Needs Service as a matter of urgency. And I therefore ask Councillor Bailey if he would work with Councillor Watts and councillors in the cross-party way this has always been considered, to identify those areas where members can add significant value, and in doing so we collectively at both cabinet level and scrutiny level demonstrate our clear political leadership to this area, because there are a range of issues where I feel we could collectively add value.
Thank you. That's a very constructive question. I absolutely give my 100% support to that. Thank you.
So is that a yes, and you'll enable it to happen?
I'm happy to work with you and others to conduct that review.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. The fourth question is from Councillor M. Forster to Councillor Neal. The question and responses are on screen. If you could ask your supplementary question, it will be noted and Councillor Neal will reply.
I don't have a supplementary question.
Thank you. The fifth question is from Councillor Allen to Councillor Neal, Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Improvement. The same applies there. Could you ask your supplementary question if you have one, and then she will reply.
I do have a supplementary question. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, the response states that the inflationary figures included in the draft budget will be indicative. Given that we need to set a budget by March, how long do we expect it to be before we have something more concrete? And the second part of the question is the Cabinet member aware that the town and parish councils will not be exempt from the national insurance increase?
Right. Thank you. The question is being noted and will be passed on to Councillor Neal, who will send a written reply. Thank you. We now move on to the motion in item 14, submitted under Council Procedure Rule 11. A motion has been submitted and set out at the beginning of the agenda. So the motion will be moved, seconded, and then we will move into debate. Councillors can only speak once and for no longer than 5 minutes. Councillors in the room will be invited to speak first. The motion mover will have the right to reply before the vote is taken. If an amendment is moved and seconded, the debate will begin with on the amendment. Anyone who has already spoken on the substantive motion can speak again on the amendment. The mover of the substantive motion will have the right to reply at the end of the debate on the amendment before the vote is taken. So, Councillor Allen, would you like to propose the motion, please?
Yes, I'd like to move the motion as at agenda item 14, as shown on the screen.
Thank you. And Councillor Barnard,
that is formally seconded. Thank you.
Yeah. So, would the mover like to speak on the motion?
Yes, thank you. So in 2018, the Labour accused the then government of planning to remove the winter fuel payment, citing that it would cost the lives of 4,000 people across the UK. Yet within a few months of forming a government, they removed the payment for most pensioners. By their own admission, no impact assessment was done. One recent assessment states that the removal of the winter fuel payment could put an additional 100,000 pensioners into fuel poverty. Since 2018, heating costs have more than doubled. However, the state pension has not caught up. Whether or not someone can afford it is not necessarily the issue. The bigger issue is the fear of not being able to afford to heat one's home. So people will often not put their heating on because they think they can't afford it. And there's only a certain amount of clothes you can put on to keep warm. Whilst I acknowledge that the Household Support Fund has been increased, it is only enough to cover about 3% of our pensioner population. And we are talking about a generation that are too proud to ask for money. Most grew up not to be reliant on anyone else, and it's difficult to change that mindset. We did actually look at some BFC funding to see whether that would help. The initial thought was to apply a rudimentary means of a means test by using the property bands, maybe looking at all the pensioners in housing bands A to C or A to D. Note that a one-bedroom flat in a retirement complex is band C, so we're not looking at the financially well off. However, there were several challenges. First was cost. According to the Bracknell Forest website, 15% of the population is 65 or over. Even just giving them £100 instead of the £200 or £300 which they previously got from the government would cost the council somewhere between 1 and 2 million, which is money the council just does not have. Hence the motion aims to push back on the government. Secondly, we don't even know where all our pensioners are. We only know about those who use our services. The Department of Work and Pensions know all the pensioners' addresses, but not which house band they live in. And we know all the house bands, but we don't know which houses have pensioners. The leader has stated publicly that no pensioner will get cold. In doing so, she gave an assurance which, in my opinion, she can't give, as we have no knowledge of where most of our pensioners are or their financial well-being. We only know about the pensioners that have a care package. We know little or nothing about the other 90% that do not. So I urge you to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barnard, would you like to speak or reserve?
I would like to reserve and give me the opportunity to speak on the substantive motion at some point.
Thank you. So we now move to debate. Does any councillor want to speak? Councillor Temperton.
Thank you. I'd like to put the amendment, please, that has been circulated to this motion.
Right. Would you like to move your amendment, or?
I'll second it.
This is on the screen, isn't it, in the moment? So would you? So you would like to propose? Sorry, you're proposing an amendment.
I'm opposing the amendment.
And would the mover and seconder of the original motion wish to support this motion?
Councillor Allen, no, I don't. I think it's more of a rewrite than an amendment. Thank you very much.
Councillor Barnard.
No, I certainly wouldn't support it, because whereas there is reference across the sector to concerns around public finances, this actually incorporates a figure put about by the Labour Party, about 22 billion, and is not actually grounded or based in fact other than political rhetoric.
Thank you. Councillor Temperton, would you like to move? Would you like to speak? Sorry, you have not accepted the amendment, so we will debate that amendment before voting on whether to accept it or not. Councillor Temperton, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Yes, I would. Thank you. When money is short, it's right that the funding available is used to support those most in need. Instead of remaining as a universal benefit regardless of health or wealth or income, the winter fuel payment is now to be targeted to support those pensioners who need it most. I am one of those who have had it taken away, like a few others in this room. Like many of the pensioners included in the 16,471, I have always given the winter fuel allowance away, in my case to the food bank, to support those more in need. When canvassing, one lady was very angry about losing the allowance, but then added that she would not need it in January as she was on her cruise. Not all of the 16,471 pensioners are relying on this grant to heat their home. However, I do appreciate that many pensioners have been affected by this withdrawal, and the amendment highlights what has been done to support them. The council pays for a superb computer program called Lift, which enables our officers to identify any of those most at need of risk of supporting, most at risk and need of supporting. These pensioners were contacted by the financial inclusion team. This government's extension of the household support grant has financed support to continue from October for another year. There is discussions going on between the local government association and the government for maintaining such or similar grants in the future. Those most affected are always the ones just above the threshold for the cut-off. This needs to be reviewed. Increasing the state pension would give all pensioners more basic income and something I would readily lobby for. No one in Britain in 2024 should have to depend on meeting a benefit requirement in order to keep warm. I would also like to say that it's not the business of this council, nor me in particular, to write to other councils inviting them to sign petitions. They're quite capable of deciding that themselves, especially as many Bracknell Forest councillors sitting right here are double-hatted and also sit as elected members on those very same councils. I move the amendment.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak or reserve?
I'll speak, thank you. I think it's important to provide some context to this amendment, an amendment which gives clear local focus and actionable steps for this council to follow, as opposed to the political showboating behind the original motion. The winter fuel allowance was introduced as a universal credit benefit by Gordon Brown in the Labour government of 1997, a move that was vehemently opposed by the Conservative opposition of the time. So it's somewhat surprising to hear the same party finding a convenient new position and attempting to portray this as a social injustice. Thanks to the financially reckless decisions of the last 14 years, we are now facing an entirely different set of challenges, nationally and locally, to that which the last new Labour government administration faced in 1997. Again, the context is important, and with a £22 billion black hole in national funds to now rationalise, it's clear that really tough and unexpected decisions have had to be made. What is also clear is that locally, residents recognise that providing a universal benefit, regardless of household wealth or income, does not make sense, and that is why it should be targeted to support exactly those pensioners who need it most. I strongly commend the vital work being delivered by this council to identify and engage the many numbers of those not claiming the pension credit who will benefit from it. I'm encouraged that we've chosen to allocate £140,000 of funds to help vulnerable residents no longer eligible, and I will fully back efforts to uphold this support in the coming years, as well as lobbying for an increase to the basic state pension. This change to what was a policy first introduced by a Labour Party nearly 3 decades ago has not happened in a vacuum. We must not forget the willful neglect of the previous Conservative government on some of the most vulnerable people in our society, which has led to the situation for so many who are forced to choose between heating and eating, as you've pointed out. Luckily in Bracknell Forest we live in one of the least deprived areas in the country, but it is on us to ensure at a local level that those who really need this help are prioritised, rather than dishing out the same benefit to all, including some of the most privileged people, and also that we continue to support the brilliant team here at the council dedicated to delivering it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barnard.
Thank you very much. Well, it appears as if it's taken 18 months to finally bring class war into this council chamber. let's be absolutely clear. It was a Labour paper, which we were told was independently conceived, that showed that this very act would lead to 4,000 extra deaths amongst pensioners. It is independent research that has shown recently that 100,000 more pensioners will move into fuel poverty. At this point in time as well, the energy price cap has increased now and will again in January, further disadvantaging those pensioners. And as we go into next year, we know that the national insurance contribution rise on pensioners will further erode their ability to purchase care packages, as those costs will go on to them as many are provided privately. But let's be clear about this, it goes beyond that. And actually, you know, there are a lot of people in Bracknell Forest who are unhappy about this, and pensioners, by goodness, we met them on the doorsteps of Great Hollands over the last few weeks, where I think it's fair to say that the Labour vote there took a little bit of a pounding amongst a certain sector of the population. So let's be clear about this, that work carried out by Unison, not exactly a Conservative-leaning body, found out that over 50% of a very large number of pensioners surveyed would, out of fear, cut their spend on fuel. 40% would cut back on essentials, and a staggering 20% would cut back on food. But in our own borough in Bracknell Forest, it isn't just people sitting in this council chamber. We have more rural parts of this borough, where people heat their houses with propane gas or fuel oil. And it might come as a surprise to those that don't actually live in that situation that those pensioners, quite understandably, use that £200 or £300 to fill their fuel tank for Christmas. And given barely several months to understand that they were losing this payment, there are pensioners watching the level in their tanks as we sit here tonight, conscious that they can't actually afford to fill them. So let's be clear about this. There was no impact assessment. Number 10 took this decision. The 22 billion, Georgia, that you have cited in this chamber this evening is a construct of the Labour government. On the very day they announced the You might shake your heads, but on the very day you decided to take £1.5 billion away from pensioners, I seem to remember a significant above-inflation rise was given to engine drivers and things like that, earning considerably more than the 13,000 cut-off. Quite frankly, everyone, in this chamber tonight, I would have hoped we could have come together to lobby the government to look again at this really, really difficult short-term decision that was taken. Councils up and down the country recognise. And actually, you know, we did counsel Mrs. Temperton. We worked with other councils over, you know, issues around Thames Water. So why not on this? Let's be clear about this. What I'm asking tonight, in part of this motion, is that we really ask the government to look again, because by their own figures, they are condemning 4,000 people potentially to cold weather excess deaths and another 100,000 to poverty. And I never thought I would see the day when Labour councillors would sit in this council chamber and actually condone such actions. We have an opportunity to write to government, as you used to urge us to do as well, when you were in opposition. Let's do it. Let's get this process overturned, and let's work together to make sure we can support pensioners. Because my final comment is, yes, you can put more money into the hardship fund, but let's be absolutely clear. Every pound you have to use to make up for a poor decision by central government is a pound less we can spend on other families who we're all committed to supporting in this borough.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to speak in favour of the motion as amended, and start off by acknowledging in the last few years the cost of living pressures on everyone, working age people, pensioners, children, child poverty. And I would like to first keep the comments about context short, because Councillor Pickering, to give her proper title, has already alluded to them. And keeping in mind that decisions about the budget rest with the national government and outside the scope of local authorities, this motion takes into account the important economic context in which a difficult decision would have come about, as well as the if the opposition are not content with the reference to the overspend of the previous administration's last budget, we could also refer to public debt being at the highest level since the 1960s, and the level of debt places all our public services at risk, and it also might play a part in whether I'll be able to retire before I'm 80 years old or at all, to be honest. So I understand that the Conservatives behind would be cognizant of making difficult decisions over the time that they spent in their administration over 26 years, and would argue that the previous National Conservative government would have had to have made several difficult decisions since 2010 as well. in terms of means testing child benefit, reducing eligibility of child tax credits, and squeezing working age benefits, all in an effort to reduce the overall welfare bill. But despite working age benefits either being frozen or not keeping pace with inflation, the overall welfare bill has not come down and has actually increased slightly from 2010 to 2024, because over the same period, the state pension has increased by 16%. And I'm acutely aware of our need as a council to mitigate the potentially negative effects of withdrawing the winter fuel allowance. I would note that in the most recent budget from April 2025, the full state pension is set to rise by £362.65, or a year for most pensioners under the existing triple lock, which is more than the £300 maximum allowance for the winter fuel allowance regardless. So from April, it would maintain the state pension over the long term. I'm thinking of those who are likely to be affected, not necessarily the pensioners that appeared in the Conservatives' own ad attacking the policy, despite the impassioned plea from the man with the Rolex watch and sitting on the designer sofa. But I would note that Councillor Allen makes an important point about pensioners not necessarily being aware of their eligibility for pension credit and maybe feeling too proud to request pension credit. And I believe the amended motion outlines the important work of council officers and us as councillors to proactively identify and find support for pensioners who are affected. Recent analysis by Royal London found that 1 in 6 pensioners would feel embarrassed to tell their family about applying for pension credit to top up their income, and over half of people aged over 66 also don't like to ask for help or support from friends or relatives, even if they need it. But pension credit is an important source of support, which can boost weekly income to a minimum of £218.15 for single people, £332.95 for couples, and gains lots of additional access to support with bills. So the amended motion identifies lots of very specific support and commits to ensure funding for the financial inclusion team who carry out the important work of identifying and supporting affected pensioners. And I'm sure that we as councillors will no doubt work to fulfil our duty of supporting and signposting residents who will be entitled to the winter fuel allowance. So I'd urge councillors to support the motion as amended. Thank you.
Right, Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And can I begin by commending the work of Bracknell Forest Council for what it's doing to support those most in need following the withdrawal of the winter fuel payment. But the fact is the Conservative Party, when it was in government, didn't take away the winter fuel payment. The Labour government has decided to do that. Anybody who votes for this amendment is effectively saying they do not oppose the removal of the winter fuel payment from our pensioners, just like the Labour MP for Bracknell didn't oppose the withdrawal of the winter fuel payment from pensioners. We have a situation where pensioners face a cliff edge. What we're actually telling people who have done the right thing, who have saved for their retirement, who have paid tax, who don't want to be a burden on the state, and who are quite rightly proud about not asking for handouts, to say, tough luck, mate, you're on your own. This policy of withdrawing the winter fuel payment is a choice by the Labour government. They chose to award train drivers who get £60,000 or £70,000 a year and work on 1970s contracts and don't have to work on Sundays, and if they're spoken to during the lunch hour, they start their lunch hour again. The Labour government has chosen to give them a pay rise at the same time as taking money away from pensioners. It's nasty and it's spiteful. And I think if you vote for this motion, this amendment to this motion, you are saying you agree with this nasty and spiteful decision. And I think our residents have a right to know who and where we stand.
A recorded vote on it then. We now have Councillor Gore, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to bring this back to the debate back to the people and the residents of Bracknell. In the ward of Winkfield and Warfield East, over a third of residents are older residents. Many live rurally and a significant amount in park homes. They've been seriously impacted by the change and feel very let down. Listening to their concerns regarding the stark choices they'll have to make this winter is quite shocking. One resident today told me that he was using a camping stove to heat his home. He told me it had already provided 4 days' heat. This is absolutely disgraceful. As a student from years gone by, I can clearly recall how it was to go through a winter without heating. It was totally bleak. Residents without transport located rurally in Winkfield simply cannot get to community-run centres or other provisions to keep warm. This is having an additional and significant effect on their mental health, including increasing anxiety, depression and stress. There are a number of residents also that are slightly above the threshold required to qualify for the winter fuel allowance. These pensioners have their small state pension alone to rely on. They feel quite rightly that it's simply unfair, unjust and unreasonable to be punished in this way. Where help is available, residents are simply not aware of avenues to pursue. Some have no access to email, internet or even mobile phones. There needs to be a borough-wide drive with an increased effort in communication to reach them. Thank you.
Councillor Karim.
Thank you. I wish to speak to the amended motion. I certainly agree with Councillor Gore with regards to the need for a better push for communication to help people who need to access more information. But to coin a phrase, let's be clear. Regarding the winter fuel payment having means-tested eligibility introduced, the introduction has been necessary to address the severe underfunding of public services that have been left behind by the previous group voted out of power. Means testing is used across a range of services to ensure that those most in need can continue to receive support, and those who do not need support are not receiving excess funds that should be used for other essential services. Pensioners desperately need the NHS and other public services to function as they should, and are pleased that we are taking decisions to improve services, for example, bringing down waiting lists and address issues previously left open, such as resolving pay disputes and treating healthcare staff with dignity. We have and are putting in place extra measures to support those most in need to be able to pay their bills, and we need to increase that and do more around the communication, as has been eloquently put. We will continue to push for redistribution of funds to those most in need and an improved economy to ensure all people have a comfortable environment with fair opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Liberal Democrat Party has been clear in our opposition to cuts to winter fuel payments, with our parliamentarians consistently speaking out, voting against the Labour government's proposals, tabling a parliamentary motion to block the cuts and supporting Age UK's campaign. Whilst we recognise that some wealthy pensioners currently benefit from the payment who do not necessarily need it, the government's botched and poorly thought through job of shifting winter fuel payments to a heavily restricted means-tested benefit will have wide-reaching and damaging ramifications for many Bracknell pensioners. For this reason, I came to the Chamber this evening entirely prepared to support the original text of the proposed motion. However, I must confess that doing so would have left something of a bitter aftertaste. Whilst I share the Conservative members' expressed concerns for the welfare of vulnerable elderly residents within our borough, I can't help but get the impression that that is not really what this motion was about. As originally written, it is hard to escape the conclusion that this motion was not motivated more by a desire to embarrass the Labour majority group than it was to achieve beneficial change of any real substance for Bracknell residents. Whilst heavy on the rhetoric, and I'm sure politically uncomfortable for the majority group, nothing in the original motion would have fundamentally improved the situation for vulnerable pensioners in Bracknell Forest. Our residents deserve more than moral posturing. If you want to solve difficult problems, you've got to come to the table with genuine solutions, not just political attacks. Letter writing and a few more signatures on a petition will not heat homes this winter. Whilst it is far from my job as a Liberal Democrat member to ride to the aid of the Labour Party, I do therefore wholeheartedly support this amendment. Firstly, unlike the original text, this amendment makes a genuine new commitment within the Council's power to provide additional support to vulnerable residents through the continued funding of the financial inclusion team. Secondly, it also commits the Council to lobbying government on this issue, but in a manner with genuine potential to produce results, working constructively with central government rather than simply criticising. And thirdly, I also believe it is only fair that any discussion of this issue begins by recognising the monumental black hole the previous Conservative government left in our public finances and the mess created by increasingly reckless and fiscally irresponsible Conservative governments in recent years. Boris Johnson led us willfully into a divisive Brexit treaty that has seen UK economic growth consistently lagging behind our European neighbours, at the same time as his government handed out billions to their friends in dodgy COVID contracts. Liz Truss, in less time than it took a lettuce to go bad, ran the pound off a cliff with her disastrous, unvetted mini-budget. And Rishi Sunak, knowing he was facing electoral annihilation, sought to buy the British public with billions of pounds worth of tax cuts and spending commitments, the nature of which the Office for Budgetary Responsibility has said were withheld by the then Conservative-run Treasury, leaving the newly elected Labour government to deal with a reported £9.5 billion in-year overspend and further unfunded future commitments, which the Labour government have argued add up to the reported £22 billion, a figure I do not personally dispute. A Liberal Democrat government would not have made the same decision to cut winter fuel payments as Labour has, but I have no doubt that any party in government right now would have to be making equally difficult decisions and compromises, and I have exceedingly little patience when the party who created that mess now seek to weaponise it for cheap political point scoring within this chamber. We can do better, we must do better, and I believe that this amendment does do better, which is why it will have the full backing of the Liberal Democrat group. I would also like to reiterate the request that we have a recorded vote on this item.
Thank you. Councillor Watts.
Madam Mayor, would you please remind the members present, including those on the second row, that they should show good respect for their fellow members by not audibly chattering during speeches? Thank you.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, could I follow that up with a point of order as well? I also think members need to treat each other with respect, and any suggestion that the motion that we've put forward today from the Conservative group is a cheap political ploy, I refute utterly.
Thank you.
Can I also add to that point of order that the wording in the motion substantively came from the Liberal Democrat motion in Wokingham?
Councillor Watts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not going to speak to the motion, but I just wanted to say that on the doorstep I have also met many people who are angry about the cuts to winter fuel funds, but I have not met a single one who can name somebody who is going to suffer from that. If you do know somebody, and I agree with Councillor Moria about the drive for communication. Please, if you know somebody or if you are somebody, send them to us. This is what we're here for. And people who may be in receipt of pension credit, who are denying it because they are proud, remind them that it is not a handout, it is from years of working. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hammerson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm really amused to hear Councillor Smith, because on this one, we took this wording deliberately from the Lib Dems in Wokingham. But as usual, the Lib Dems say one thing in one place and another thing in another place. Typical. Anyway, the question is, whose side are you on? And members need to examine their consciences. We've heard about some black hole, but it's really down to choices. Rachel Reeves has decided to take money away from pensioners, but give it to train drivers earning $70,000 a year, to give extra money to their union friends, up to £12,000 a year extra to reward striking doctors for disrupting people's operations and damaging the NHS. And let's think about people's dignity here. The government are actually, and what this administration is saying is we should be forcing proud pensioners to apply for welfare to heat their homes. It's an insult to their dignity. If you've saved, even if you saved a little bit towards a pension, you're going to be disqualified from pension credit because the cut-off's about $13,000 a year. So anything anybody's done to make provisions for their own old age, actually, they get punished for that. You get punished under Labour for doing the right thing.
Right. Thank you. Councillor Collins, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a representative of the Green Party, we were disappointed when national government cut the winter fuel payment to pensioners, as we believed that other measures could have been taken to fill any black hole. That said, I accept that pensioners do not always need this payment, and therefore, is it a good idea? I don't know, but it has been done, the decision has been taken. I'm concerned that the onus has shifted away from national to local government to deal with the consequences of the cut, when so many councils are already overstretched. I was pleased to hear Councillor Templeton tell us about the council's financial inclusion team with its software for proactively reaching out to those pensioners rather than waiting for their application, because I think we're all in agreement that pensioners are proud and they don't wish to come forward. And again, as Councillor Watts said, I'd like to urge everybody to reach out to their particular ward members to make sure that they have applied if they have been missed. I'm happy that Councillor Templeton will lobby national government for further support for pensioners, including increases in pension and any other support that they might provide in the future, and therefore we will be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Councillor O'Regan.
Yes, so over the years, various administrations have done a lot of work to bring pensioners out of poverty, and it's clear that we've still got some work to do on that. And the motion point 3 requests that we focus on raising the state pension, which is linked to inflation, and of course fuel costs contribute to inflation. The other thing is that we, in some ways, our local budget situation reflects that at the national level. And we've got a budget process coming up, and we're going to have to make some difficult decisions, and one of which is about supporting our local pensioners who are in need. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out here at a local level. Again, at a local level, having spoken to a number of people on the doorstep in the recent campaign, it's pretty clear that our local policy of allocating funds and asking people to come forward, or nominating people, or using systems such as the financial inclusion team is to identify people in need, is a good policy, and it was supported by people that we spoke to on the doorstep. And again, I would just lend my voice to the other voices which have said, if you know of anyone who may be or is or potentially is in danger, or need support of any kind in this coming winter, please bring those names forward to adult social care, to your local councillor, to customer services. Just make sure that we work well together as a community and we protect anybody who needs any help. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Forster.
I just want to correct my Conservative colleagues. They seem to have made an error. While this Wokingham motion may have received Liberal Democrat support, and we were prepared to support the original text, but that motion was moved by Councillor Pauline Jurgensen, not the Lib Dems. So this is not a Lib Dem motion.
Point of information, it was amended by the Lib Dems, and at the start of this meeting, Councillor Forster, you highlighted and actually agreed with me on that point.
Right, thank you. Is that everybody? Right, in that case, it remains for me to ask Councillor Allen, the proposer of the original motion, if he wishes to sum up.
I don't sum up, sorry. The amendment.
That is what I've been told.
Okay. My summing up is... You're still debating it?
Okay. Right.
So I have a right to reply, is that right? Basically, I as a right to reply, I can't support this motion. I think the onus was on the government. The government removed the winter fuel payment, and whilst they could have, I think they should have not removed it. You know, okay, it was universal. It went to people that maybe didn't need it, but they could have found another way of means testing it in such a way that it didn't affect quite so many people. Thank you.
Right, thank you. So we now go to the vote. I'll move to the vote. Sorry. I just... Sorry. So, what do we do? Go. Oh, sorry, we now go for the vote. The amendment is... We are voting on the amendment, and the amendment is set out on the screen.
So a recorded vote has been requested, so I'm going to call out your names alphabetically, and if you could tell me whether you're for, against or abstain from voting on the motion of the amended text. So Councillor Allen.
Against.
Councillor Bailey.
For.
Councillor Barnard.
Against.
Councillor Bidwell.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Cochrane.
For.
Councillor Collins. Councillor Eberle. Councillor Mike Forster. Councillor Sophie Forster. Councillor Frewer.
For.
Councillor Frost.
For.
Councillor Gore. Councillor Gilby.
For.
Councillor Haffergy.
For.
Councillor Harrison. Councillor Hayes. Councillor Jeffries.
For.
Councillor Karim.
For.
Councillor Mackenzie Boyle.
Against.
Councillor McLean. Councillor Mossam. Councillor Regan.
For.
Councillor Penfold.
For.
Councillor Pickering.
For.
Councillor Pennell.
For.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Temperton.
For.
Councillor Thompson.
For.
Councillor Virgo. Councillor Watts.
For.
Councillor Webb.
For.
And Councillor Sarudin.
For.
That's 24 for, 8 against and 1 abstention.
Right. Thank you. So the amendment is carried and now becomes the substantive motion. Thank you. Right. Is that it now? Right. So, any councillor now wish to speak on the substantive motion? Councillor Barnard.
Thank you very much. So we've had an interesting debate there, everybody. And I think the thing we've got to be very clear about is that we will be opposing the substantive motion because the whole context of the original motion has, I think, been significantly misrepresented. We deliberately, as a group, sought to see good examples of motions which had received cross-party support from neighbouring councils and further afield, rather than actually just picking up on lines from the party centrally. This motion was arrived at on the basis of our conversations with our residents, and we were absolutely determined in the council chamber tonight for those voices to be heard loud and clear. It's very easy in a warm council chamber like this to consider all these wonderful things like means testing this and doing that and the other. The fundamental fact is, in Bracknell Forest, there are over 16,000 pensioners, many of whom this evening are very concerned, and I think will be very disappointed that this council chose to water down what was, I think, a very principled motion. Now, the slight complication of this is that we actually do agree with the fact that we need to do as much as we can locally to do this. But as has been said, this was a choice by central government, Labour government, at very short notice. Oh, it's coming to me twice. That's a new one for me. But at very short notice to remove this. No discussion, and just a reliance on a figure. Yes, the public finances weren't in the great state, but let's be clear, a lot of independent bodies have actually disputed that 22 billion. There is no doubt at all that public finances are under a great deal of pressure. But what I think worries me most about tonight is that we had an opportunity tonight to be very clear and fundamentally to ask this government to look again, through writing to Chancellor Rachel Reeves, that this possibly was not the best course of action. And by their own admission, in documents that they claimed to be absolutely independently researched, that this would cause significant hardship, illness and possibly death for a significant number of pensioners. We have chosen tonight to actually kind of skirt round the depth of that issue there. I came tonight to argue this because of people I've spoken to in Bracknell Forest, in my own ward and on the streets of Great Hollands and elsewhere. They're as a very fearful group of pensioners, and I really felt tonight this was an opportunity, as many other councils have done up and down the country, including Wokingham next door, to actually come to this meeting tonight and say, no, stop, think again. More than happy to debate about what more we can do locally, but fundamentally, as Councillor McLean said, this was a nasty decision. And I've only heard tonight from people trying to justify some of this here, where fundamentally we need to be here for all our residents, whether they're working people, whatever that might be, or whether our pensioners, which is why I cannot bring myself to vote for the amended motion, because I think it seeks to dilute what was a very simple, very clear and principled message, which we stood by, and many, many other councillors and councils up and down the country have done.
Councillor Frost.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to briefly reiterate my support of what is now the substantive motion and to respectfully disagree with Councillor Barnard. I think the now substantive motion actually builds on the original motion by specifying explicit support and commitments for funding for the financial inclusion team and for identifying extra allocations to adult social care and other forms of support. So I would be very proud to support that. And I think, you know, we're all well aware, we all know people of pensionable age. I think of my own grandparents and the difficulties they would potentially face from the withdrawal of the allowance. And so I think it's quite difficult to continue talking with the extra noise behind me, but I'll carry on. I think I just want to also slightly disagree with kind of some of the allusions that were made by other speakers that only people who are now of pensionable age are the only generation that you know is too proud for handouts or doesn't or you know works for a living. I think speaking about anyone of working age, of children, I think of them too, and I want to make sure we want to make sure that the public finances are on a firm long-term footing so that you know the state pension is there for years to come, and we're able to all benefit from putting into the system and being able to retire and kind of enjoy that time rather than worrying about heating and eating. And these concerns extend to all of us, I think. And in terms of means testing versus universal payments, I heard no such protestations from the Conservatives when they moved to restrict other benefits for children, working age people, and I don't know whether that's because children can't vote and pensioners are a reliable voting bloc, but otherwise I think this now substantive motion builds on the original motion and identifies explicit support, and it's all now incumbent upon us as councillors to support pensioners this winter before the uprate in the state pension then more than offsets this temporary withdrawal. Thank you.
Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've been at the council long enough to say with complete honesty and integrity that when I've seen Conservative governments make stupid mistakes, I've sat in this council chamber and I've made the point that I don't agree with my own government making stupid mistakes. I've spoken out against my own government on many occasions, as those members who've been in the council chamber before May 2023 will be able to attest. The reason I can't vote for this motion, despite the good work all the council is doing to help people, is because the tenet of this motion, which was a genuinely principled motion, despite what others may suggest and impugn, was about telling the government they got it wrong. It was about telling the government they'd made a mistake. It was about telling the government they'd made a poor choice. This motion was saying to the government, think again. Because you've chosen to amend it, because you do not wish to criticise your own government, it means I cannot support it. We should have had the courage to say, it's wrong, it's a bad thing you've done, change your mind. You have chosen not to do that, and that is why I will not support this motion tonight.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Harrison.
I would just point out, in contrast to what Councillor Foster said, that there's a great difference between taking away a heating allowance from pensioners on maybe £12,000 or £13,000 a year and taking away child benefit from higher rate taxpayers. Now, it wouldn't bother me too much if we were taking away heating payments from pensioners who were on higher rate tax, but the parallel is a bit ridiculous.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will respectfully disagree with my Conservative colleagues that this amended motion waters down the original. The original motion would have seen Council write a letter to the Chancellor that clearly would have had no impact other than creating headlines in the Bracknell News and sign a petition. The revised motion makes a new commitment to continue to fund the financial inclusion team, which will support and benefit pensioners. We've heard particularly about those pensioners who may not be aware or may be embarrassed to apply for benefits and credits. That team is supporting those pensioners. It's carrying out vital work, making them aware of what's available to them and supporting them in accessing it. And that new commitment that this motion makes, I believe, is incredibly valuable and builds significantly upon the original motion. The other thing this revised motion does is that it engages with central government, but it does so in a constructive manner to support pensioners moving forwards, including increasing the state pension and pressuring the government to maintain their manifesto commitment on the triple lock. So I fundamentally do not agree that this waters down the original motion. Really, I'm quite disappointed that the Conservative members aren't able to swallow their pride and support a motion which is clearly beneficial for our residents tonight.
Thank you. Right, in that case, Councillor Templeton, would you like to sum up?
Thank you. When money is short, and at the moment I don't think anybody anywhere would say it's not short, it's the right thing that the funding is available and it's used to support those most in need, instead of remaining as a universal benefit regardless of household wealth or income. The amendment does clearly show and say what we should be doing to actually lobby the government. Pensions need to be increased so that nobody is needing the very, very, this means-tested thing to actually support, to keep them warm. It should be a fundamental thing that people in this country automatically are able to heat their houses. But it cannot be done yet. And so I still think that it's right that the money goes to those most in need. And there is real effort put into this motion to actually make sure that we continue in Bracknell Forest, to make sure that if ever we find anybody, and you have mentioned people tonight that you know who have not put forward their cases and have not got the extra support, the extra support is there if we know who they are. And I ask all the councillors to help us make sure that people in Bracknell Forest know that and come forward and help us to help them. I move the motion.
Thank you. We now move to vote. As a recorded vote has been asked for, can you turn on your microphones? Oh, sorry, it hasn't been asked for this one.
Sorry,
Right.
points of order, Madam Mayor. I'd like to just confirm that my request for a recorded vote would extend to the substantive motion
Okay.
as well as the amendment. Thank you.
So, change again. We are having a recorded vote.
Thank you. So same again, I'll call your name out, and if you could let me know if you're for, against or abstain from the substantive motion. So Councillor Allen.
Abstain.
Councillor Barnard.
Abstain.
Councillor Bidwell.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Cochrane.
For.
Councillor Collins.
For.
Councillor Eberle. Councillor Mike Forster. Councillor Sophie Forster. Councillor Frewer.
For.
Councillor Frost.
For.
Councillor Gore.
Abstain.
Councillor Gilby.
For.
Councillor Haffajay.
For.
Councillor Harrison. Councillor Hayes. Councillor Jeffries.
For.
Councillor Karim.
For.
Councillor Mackenzie Boyle.
Abstain.
Councillor McLean. Councillor Mossam. Councillor O'Regan.
For.
Councillor Penfold.
For.
Councillor Pickering.
For.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Temperton. Councillor Thompson.
For.
Councillor Virgo.
Abstain.
Councillor Watts.
For.
Councillor Webb.
For.
And Councillor Sarudin. That's 22 for and 9 abstentions.
So this motion is carried. I would like to thank everybody for their participation in this and real concern. And
Can I just apologise to my colleagues in front if I was somewhat excited at points this evening, and I will take that comment as read, and apologies for anything it has caused.
Right. Right, we're no longer live. You can go.